Computer games have captured the soul of a generation. For the first time in history, we can create a new and more thrilling version of life. You can be a soldier, a superhero, a super vixen, or a mythical warrior. You are master of the universe. Computer games are a force of darkness and light. From fighting wars to spreading propaganda and mayhem, they are a crucial part of our future. And whether you play them or not, computer games are going to change your life. Consumers now spend $25 billion a year on computer games and game systems. 800 million people worldwide are regular players. Their massive popularity has made them into a 21st century entertainment force that rivals Hollywood. Every year, the biggest companies in the industry try to outdo each other in an effort to create buzz for their new games.
All the trades, the retailers, the financial analysts, the promotion partners like Coca-Cola and McDonald's, whoever we want to do tie-ins with, they all come here to see who's hot and who's not.
It's a high-stakes business. The development cost of a new game has gone from $40,000 to $10 million in a decade. 80% of games fail in the first year. But for those who succeed here, the payoff is huge. The game industry's biggest hitmaker is Will Wright. He's the creator of the most popular game in history, The Sims, a game where players create a new and better version of real life.
I think if I imagine games and the impact they've had on our culture, I think probably the biggest impact is that the way kids learn, especially about complex things. Rather than pick up a book and start learning theories, they actually can be thrown into these complex environments and they will just kind of randomly start mashing buttons and looking at the results. And I think that way of relating to the world is kind of very different than the generation that preceded them.
As the creator of a hit that has sold almost 60 million copies, Will Wright is game royalty, the industry's Steven Spielberg. After years in development, Will Wright is ready to launch his newest game, Spore, where the player begins as a single-celled organism and climbs the evolutionary ladder to become the creator of an entire world. In a shrewd marketing move, he invites his friend, comedy great Robin Williams, to test drive the game.
Mr. Robin Williams.
My English is not so good.
Yeah, let's bring him to life and just see how long before basically this one's eaten.
I put it over here. I think I flip out it. Oh no, hold on. This is a creature who can kiss its own ass. Hold on. 2 mouths. This is obviously a creature developed in Hollywood that can talk out of both sides.
Games to me have always represented kind of the playful side of life. In fact, I think play and games are both aspects of education, and I really enjoy learning things. And so I think our culture has kind of disconnected the idea of play from education, as play is this disposable, meaningless thing. In fact, play is one of the most meaningful activities that we can engage in.
You'll see all around the country, kids will go to bed early when they're frustrated with a homework problem, and they'll stay up late when they're interested in a level in a game. They will put more energy into it because the game rewards their engagement with it, because there's a sense of accomplishment built into the game over time.
This demographic moves fast, they think fast, they multitask, they need to be engaged, they need to be interactively involved with entertainment, and that's what gaming does. So it's by far and away the preferred form of entertainment. 18 to 34-year-old men have reduced their daily consumption of television down to 27 minutes. By contrast, they're now spending 2 hours a night on average playing games, 4 times what they spend on television.
What we have in the digital generation is a new sort of sense that they're able to change the image on the screen. They're able to communicate through the image on the screen. They're able to express themselves through the image on the screen.
There's never been a time before when you had another world to go to. When you had your Narnia, you went into the wardrobe and it was somewhere else. Never before have people had the option of saying, I don't like this physical world I've got, I'm going somewhere better.
Games represent probably the most powerful new form of expression that's emerged in the last 30 or 40 years. I think if you look at the history of any new medium, new media technology, what you discover is that young people are among the early adopters and adapters of that technology, that they move in quickly. They're looking for a world that their parents haven't already occupied. It's outside the realm of their parents' experience.
Computer games are creating a revolution in the way we play and the way we live. They may even be changing the way we think. They are the native language of a new virtual world. It is a world that already exists in South Korea, the most wired country on the planet. Here, computer gamers are national heroes, rich, famous, and sought after. A large match between elite players can draw 25,000 passionate and partisan fans. 23-year-old Kang Min is one of Korea's top players and one of the most famous people in the country. He's been a professional gamer since the age of 16.
I make more money than most other gamers. I make a lot of money.
The game he plays is now the country's newest spectator sport, Starcraft. In a good year, Kang Min can make $250,000 playing this strategy game. It requires razor-sharp intelligence and is played at a blinding velocity, like chess at warp speed. Kang Min is one of the fastest players ever and can execute over 500 separate actions every minute. He routinely practices more than 14 hours a day. The team sponsor is KTF, one of the largest cell phone companies in the country.
2005년 5월 9일
The popularity of this new spectator sport is driven by 2 TV channels devoted exclusively to game programming. They're equal parts MTV and ESPN. Starcraft matches attract the highest ratings. The television producers have masterminded the creation of a star system designed to appeal to a largely female audience. The best and the cutest players are media darlings and have fan clubs with hundreds of thousands of members. In South Korea, computer nerds are the sex symbols for the 21st century. Behind the scenes, the life of a pro gamer is less glamorous. There are over 100 matches each year with no off-season. The players range in age from 16 to 24 and spend long periods away from their families. Before an important match, the team sponsor sends the team out of Seoul to train in isolation. For their financial backers, this team is serious business. In the past 5 years, KTF has invested over $50 million to create a championship-winning team. They are a marketing juggernaut. Having a winning team is all part of a strategy to create cachet for their mobile phones among young teenagers. The day of the match, Kang Min is met by his devoted fans. Each sponsor has its own team colors, and the broadcasters fuel the rivalry between the opposing teams with a pregame show calculated to fire up the fans. The match is a television event, broadcast live with color commentators. The winning team will take home a $100,000 prize. Tonight, the KTF team is competing against their arch rivals, SK Telecom. KTF gets off to an early lead, decisively taking the first match. Min is next up. Most individual matches are over in less than 15 minutes. A player wins by destroying his opponent's bases and fighting forces. It's a battle of strategy and speed. The audience hangs on every move the players make. Starcraft is second nature to the digital natives of Korea.
Everyone has played it. Everyone knows how it works. Everyone knows the rules and the strategy. If you've grown up and you've spent your whole life playing these video games like Starcraft, you know exactly what makes someone really good at it. So when you look at the screen, you see something that other people don't see. In the same way that the guy who's sitting on the couch watching Monday Night Football sees stuff that his wife doesn't see because he knows the rules, he knows the players, he can see all this stuff.
Tonight, Min suffers a crushing defeat, leaving his fans and backers to wonder if he's losing his edge. If Min's hands slow down, even by milliseconds, his career could be over. The average length of a career is only 6 years.
10대 때 시작했다 그러면 If you started when you're a teenager, you can work for 10 years at the most. As in any sport, you become weaker in this job as you get older.
Tonight, the SK Telecom players are the new champions.
I have never regretted what I do. I think my job is the best job, because more than anything else, I get to do what I like.
As a career, being a pro gamer is for the very young, but the strategic skills these gamers develop are giving them a second chance at earning big money. Retired gamers are being recruited by financial institutions to be trained as stockbrokers. In the United States, some gamers have a different career path. The U.S. Army is turning them into soldiers. For the U.S. Army, computer games are a priority of the highest order. They are investing millions of dollars to train the next generation of soldiers. Computer games are the key to bringing the world's biggest fighting machine into the 21st century. First, the Army needs to lure young Americans into a life of military service. The battle for the hearts and minds of the gamer generation is underway.
Let me put it this way. We're a volunteer army. We're competing with industry for the attention and potentially to employ the best folks we can attract.
The Army has found that the old ways of reaching kids had stopped working. At the turn of the millennium, recruitment hit its lowest point in 30 years. Colonel Casey Wardinsky was an economics professor at West Point studying the recruitment problem. He realized that the Army needed to speak a new language. He convinced the Pentagon to bankroll the development of a computer game that could sell the Army to a digital generation.
The only video game developed by the world's premier land force.
It's called America's Army.
From the barracks to the battlefield, it's the most authentic military game ever.
What we want to do is sort of create a revolution in the way we talk to kids. We want to be in the business of conveying information about being a soldier in ways that are relevant.
To reach the gamer generation, Wardinsky turned to the players themselves for help. He hired a commercial games developer, bypassing the usual Army channels. America's Army is played on the internet, and its goal is to get young people to consider joining the Army to fight for their country.
It's allowing them to speak through the media that they're paying the most attention to. It's not TV ads, it's not ads in the movie theaters, it's games.
The game is designed to put young people in direct contact with real soldiers. America's Army is available for free download, and it is played on the military's own computer servers. Enlisted soldiers are also encouraged to play.
What they really wanted to do was build a place where civilians and servicemen would play together, talk together, bond socially, and be part of a discussion about what it was to join the military lifestyle. Because if you did that, it would become much more attractive to younger people.
America's Army is an unprecedented appeal directly into the bedrooms of kids all over the United States. The homepage of the game contains a link that takes young people right to the U.S. Army recruitment website.
You don't get to be somebody's top choice if you wait until like age 18. When you wait till age 18 to talk to them, you're probably a fallback position.
I'm certain there are kids that have joined the Army because they thought America's Army was really cool. Because they understand that there's kind of a blurring going on, you know? I mean, not necessarily in a good way. I mean, recruits are walking in because they think it's going to be like a video game.
Just like in the real Army, kids who play are taught to handle weapons and to shoot. The game also contains elements of realism that set it apart from other shooter games. In most games, a player can immediately come back to life after being killed. But in America's Army, a dead player does not come back to life until after the game is finished.
A lot of the other games will get concerned trying to Hollywood it out with ridiculous stories, and although you're having a good time, it's not a very emotional time. You don't really care what happens. There's no punishment, because no matter what stupid thing you do next, you'll just be right back in the game.
To ensure that the young game designers create a game that reflects the goals of the Army, each year they take them out of their California offices for a 3-day boot camp. The idea is to introduce them to the latest weapons and the latest tactics.
Hey, there's my guy. You're in the desert this year. Last year was woodland. Mostly dead grass today. Yeah, so you're in the right colors.
We bring them to what we call green up and let them touch the pieces of the Army they're going to end up modeling, so that realism can come across in high fidelity, at least the highest fidelities we can master in the virtual world.
Okay, it'll decock itself for you. You put it back on fire, you can see the red dot is fire. Now it's on double action.
These vehicles are to represent targets that might be
The
close
Army
to that,
also wants to expose the gamers to the weapons used by the enemies of the United States. This time, they demonstrate the power of the roadside bombs that are a favorite of the insurgents in Iraq.
If you are interested in building a military society where people know how to use weaponry and are somewhat desensitized to the loss of human life, then video games can be a fairly effective way to train that.
Did you see the concussion ring? How fast it went out?
Once the weekend warriors arrive back at their offices in the heart of Silicon Valley, the designers integrate the Army's latest innovations into the game.
This particular one is the M249. It's actually a newer model than we have in our game, updated. Evan, did you actually get to shoot this one?
Yeah, I did fire it. The biggest thing that I noticed is I was really surprised how little recoil the actual weapon really had.
We always shot it in the bipod position.
Yeah.
America's Army has been a huge success, and since its launch, the game has been downloaded more than 7 million times. In the 2 years following the game's release, the Army met its recruitment goals.
America's Army is the most cost-effective outreach they've ever done in history, full stop.
The influence of computer games is now spreading from recruitment to training. The Pentagon is placing computer game simulations at the core of its battle plans, and the Army is now the single biggest partner of the commercial games industry in the country.
So if we have an environment, let's say that we wanted an object to look like it was photographed in Fallujah, we go in and capture the lighting in Fallujah, okay, which has very specific characteristics. There'll be a certain amount of aerial haze, there'll be a certain kind of character to the light at a particular time of day, etc.
We are, particularly in America today, we are a very militaristic society. We take for granted that there are going to be major military conflicts in the world and we're going to be involved in them. Video games are just a part of that cultural manifestation of being a military society.
1720.
The Army has opened a massive high-tech training studio at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. They're using game technology, virtual reality, and sophisticated simulations of the Middle East to prepare the digital generation for war. The Army believes that this kind of training works because almost every soldier who joins is a gamer.
Engagement successful, target destroyed.
The games are part of an effort to gain the upper hand in an era of ever-shifting battle conditions. Many of the soldiers heading off to fight have never been outside the United States. The idea is to allow the soldier to get a dry run on the reality that awaits them.
If I can put him into an environment where he actually knows what to expect, then I have an edge up on the enemy that is immeasurable, that's invaluable.
This is a hostile area.
But this approach has its critics. Not everyone is convinced computer games can prepare young people for the reality of guerrilla warfare.
You know, when a number of people said that modern war is virtual, that the first Gulf War was like a Nintendo game, you know, in the sense that people pushed buttons and fired things at each other, but they never saw each other. And that's one reason why the horror of terrorism hits the military so greatly, is it's in your face, it's brute, it's not distance. People blow themselves up to get at you. That's so different from a world where you're just hitting, where the enemy is a blip on the screen.
The United States Army has thrown its full weight behind computer games as a way to attract and train the next generation of soldiers. It is an idea that is gaining strength in other parts of the world. Syria is a dictatorship that has had one-party rule since 1970. Anti-American sentiment is intense and widespread. Like all dictatorships, Syria fears the spread of information. 10 years ago, you needed a security clearance to own a fax machine. Now, it's struggling to control the impact of a wired world. The influence of pirated Western computer games is a looming threat. Their exploding popularity has the regime watching with apprehension. As more young people are drawn to Western games, there is concern about their impact on young Muslim minds. In almost every military-themed game, Arabs are the enemy. In the eyes of Syrian nationalists, Arab kids are being trained to kill their own people.
They are playing games like this regardless the mission. Maybe the mission bombard your own house or your own town.
The Americans make the games. They get you to have fun while you are killing Arabs. They expect us to entertain ourselves with these games. They show us how to kill Arabs and say, go ahead, have fun. Killing Arabs is not fun. On the contrary, it makes one get really mad. Why are they killing us? Why is it not that we are killing them?
We are losers, and look, they are showing us losing every day. We are losing all over the world.
Radwan Kazmia is a Syrian game developer with an agenda. With the full backing of the government, he has set up a company to produce games designed to incite the passions of the young men of the Arab world. As the backdrop for his first game, Kazmia selects one of the most incendiary events in recent memory, the Hebron massacre of 1994. A fanatical Israeli settler named Baruch Goldstein took an automatic weapon into a mosque in the city of Hebron. The game always launches with a frightening depiction of Goldstein in the moments leading up to the massacre. He killed 29 worshippers and injured 125. In the wake of the bloodbath, dozens more Palestinians were killed as the Israeli army attempted to quash the riots. The game is called Under Siege. The player assumes the role of a young Palestinian caught up in the aftermath of the massacre. His goal is to kill Israeli soldiers. Under Siege depicts the Israeli military as a force of brutality and terror. The effort to reach the gamer generation in the Middle East has a particular urgency. 70% of the population is under the age of 25. The size of the youth bubble has caught the attention of the old-style Arab media. In 2005, one of the biggest book publishers in the Middle East, Dar al-Fakr, made a deal with Radwan's company to distribute Under Siege throughout the region. Dar al-Fakr has deep roots in the regime, and it recognizes the role that games are playing in the lives of young Arabs.
The trend is toward games because they give the youth things that books cannot offer. Computer games present color, motion, 3 dimensions that are tempting and that facilitate the acquisition of knowledge. The young man deeply interacts with the game and will practice the knowledge he is getting from the game firsthand. So here, he is not merely a recipient, rather he is an active participant.
The game puts you in the thick of it. It immerses you in the scene of war and in the midst of helping Palestinians. So for sure the experience I gained is more than I would have reading a book.
With the aggressive marketing of Dar al-Fakr behind him, Radwan sold over 100,000 copies of Under Siege throughout the Middle East. The financial success allows Radwan to develop new games for his market.
So when we present Under Siege for them, well, that's a game that's speaking our voice, that's speaking our minds, and this is what's called digital dignity. They play with it, they are proud of it.
I like the game because it motivates us. It motivates all Arabs to free Palestine, to unite together and liberate Palestine. All Arabs should play this game. The game makes us feel that we are there and we are the ones shooting at the Israelis and killing them.
The most joy I get is the sparkling eyes of these kids when they see our work. It's the most rewards I can ever get. You know, when they see your work, you got your prize.
Games like Under Siege use violence as a way of promoting an agenda. But in many computer games, the violence is an end in itself. The computer games that attract the most attention are those with ultra-violent content. Many parents worry these games will make their kids more aggressive.
The game industry is sadly addicted to the idea of violence, and that's for a couple reasons. One is that they're still trying to go time and time again after teenage boys, and teenage boys love watching stuff blow up. The second thing is that a lot of video games are fundamentally, still in a very simple way, about things colliding with other things.
Adolescent male culture is very fascinated with feeling powerful because they feel disempowered at that particular age. They're sort of betwixt and between. They're an adolescent culture where there's a lot of frustration, both socially, class-wise, and sexually. And so being able to sort of go out there and really have literal life and death power over others is enormously attractive to that group of people in that time in their lives.
The controversy revolves around one kind of violent game, the first-person shooter. To many, they are the demon child of the computer game industry.
Fire in the hole! Bomb hit.
In a first-person shooter, the game takes place through the eyes of the player wielding a weapon.
Hey, friendly fire!
Emergency!
First-person shooters tend to professionalize, in many ways, the pursuit of violence and to move it towards an interest in weaponry and sort of this roving, nomadic form of becoming a killing machine.
The reason why people worry about first-person shooters is that they're intentionally, over the top. These are the bad boys of the video game world. To a certain extent, they're sort of the modern rock music, because they just rub the parents' noses in it. They're like, we're gonna have, realistic exit wounds. When you shoot people, it's gonna blow a hole in their back.
The game called Postal is banned in 13 countries. In Australia and New Zealand, it's against the law to even own this game.
So there's always one part of culture that basically exists to sort of allow us to just completely let our most antisocial, most horrible desires run free.
Its creator sees the game as an over-the-top satire.
Postal is really a parody of American pop culture today. The violent aspect is an element of the game, clearly. However, the humor is really what we find most attractive.
Some of the most violent games like Grand Theft Auto and Postal are obviously, from an adult perspective, meant to be funny and satirical. But at what age can children really start to pick that up? Because there may be some things that, as an adult, we look at and we get it. That's a joke, it's satire.
That's what I call welfare reform. Free!
And the kids that are 11, 12, 13, 14, they're not getting it.
In the last few years, the concern over violent computer games has moved into the laboratory. At Michigan State University, a young researcher hopes some cutting-edge technology will shine a light into the minds of computer gamers. Renee Weber is using functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, to study the brain activity of gamers playing a violent video game.
We actually can see how you think, how you feel while you are playing a video game.
In Weber's study, the brains of 13 young men are observed inside an fMRI scanner as they play a first-person shooter. All are regular gamers. Previous neurological research has shown which areas of the brain light up when we have aggressive feelings. The purpose of this experiment is to see whether these same areas are activated when playing violent games. Weber has played shooter games his whole adult life and wanted to prove they have no negative effects.
We wanted to show that playing violent video game is just playing a game and has nothing to do with aggressive cognitions, aggressive effects, and even aggressive behavior.
What Weber needed was hard scientific evidence to back up his theory that the games are harmless. The results of his experiments were not what he expected. Renee Weber's study is the first time that science has looked at the brain activity of kids engaged in hardcore virtual violence.
I don't see him moving in there, and there's less motion on the images.
Very much. He also plays a more interesting map, actually. It's more activity. That may be a reason, because he's more immersed in the gameplay.
Weber's experiment compares the brain activity of the gamer with the violent content of the game.
Okay, here. Oh, what a great anterior cingulate cortex.
Weber found clear evidence of dramatic effects on the brain.
Once we got our results, we were actually amazed. We could see that playing first-person shooter game translates into brain activity that is characteristic for aggressive cognitions and aggressive effects.
Weber's work is conclusive evidence that playing first-person shooter games produces aggressive impulses in the player's brain.
We have to make an important distinction between aggressive effects, which is aggressive feelings or emotions, and aggressive behavior, acting aggressively.
There is no clear link between aggressive brain activity and violent behavior. Many people still worry about the effect of violent video games on troubled kids.
The problem is not that violent games make all kids violent. The problem is that some kids are violent because of the games.
Jack Thompson is a Florida-based lawyer who has repeatedly gone after the video game industry for its violent products. He argues that the immersive nature of first-person shooters puts them in a whole different class.
This is an entertainment modality that is beyond anything the world has ever seen. Its interactive nature means that it is more powerful.
In the last decade, there have been more than 20 shooting sprees carried out by young people with a history of playing first-person shooter games.
They offer a way to act out the dark side of a troubled soul. You get to kill, you get to maim, you get to hurt without caring, you get to do all kinds of things that are candy for a troubled soul.
In 1997, in Paducah, Kentucky, a 14-year-old boy named Michael Carneal brought a gun to school. He fired 8 shots and with 100% accuracy shot 8 people. 5 of his victims were shot in the head.
I became convinced that the game, Doom, and other games that Carneal played provided the tipping point for Carneal to do what he did.
His marksmanship was astonishing. He had fired a real gun on only one other occasion, but he had spent hundreds of hours playing violent shooter games. Many of these games give bonus points for headshots.
Gun experts will explain that the face is the clearest marker of specific human identity, and therefore, unless you've been desensitized to the doing that, you're not going to shoot somebody in the face, because that last split second you're going to see their face and you're going to know it's a specific human being.
The event that seared violent games into the collective consciousness was the murders at Columbine. For the first time, gamers became the enemy.
Well, what happened after Columbine was a desire to round up all the gamers. So what you saw in schools across America was school psychologists sending kids off to therapy because they like to play games.
The moral panic over games seems to be receding.
That generation that started playing video games when they were young is now growing into adulthood. So the kids who started playing Super Mario Brothers 2 decades ago are now parents, they're now first-year teachers, they're now young professionals, they're now journalists. It's much harder to sustain a panic about a medium that's been part of your life for as long as you can remember.
The generation that has grown up with computer games is now driving them to the next level. A new wave of so-called serious games are based on a simple revolutionary idea. Take the immersive power of computer games and use it to help people and spread knowledge. Here, the shooter concept is turned on its head. In Russian, you're not taking lives, you save them by blasting cancer cells.
If you shoot a whole bunch of them and then you miss one, multiply and make a whole bunch more that you had to kill later on. Chemo is your primary weapon in the game. As you're attacking them, they'll lunge at you to try to kill you.
To win the game, the player must cure all the patients.
We now are discovering that games are powerful resources for learning and getting people to do things. When we do things that matter to us, we feel a sense of engagement. Games are very powerful mechanisms for creating rules and roles that leave us feeling more engaged.
Projects like Remission are a glimpse into the future, where games are an important part of how we live and learn.
Right now, we hold games apart as a special kind of experience because they're aimed at the young. But in fact, sooner or later, they're going to be integrated back into the sum total of human experience. That as we begin to use games in hospitals for medical treatment, as we use games in psychological clinics for therapy, as we use games to teach, games will cease to be called games. They will simply be a medium of expression we use to do a variety of other functions within our society.
As we find more and more ways to use games, they increasingly resemble life itself.
When you live inside an online world like World of Warcraft for a long time, it really starts to feel like your home. And your people there really seem to feel like your people. People get married inside these games. And that's a really amazing, deep, complex emotion that no one gets from a book or a movie. You get it from living in an experience, and that's something games do.
In Episode 2, we enter the virtual world of online games, a world without rules, without limits. In this world, you leave your earthly existence behind to explore your fantasies. We journey to a small town, 100 miles from the Arctic Circle, for the largest gathering of online gamers on the planet. A hustling entrepreneur gambles on becoming the first virtual Donald Trump, spending 6 figures on a piece of real estate that exists only in virtual space. Games are approaching the final frontier, sex. In the world of online sex games, everyone is a sexual superhero. Virtual money, virtual power, and the search for virtual fame. The world of online games is like no place on earth. Hundreds of millions of people worldwide now spend vast amounts of time inside a dazzling parallel universe, the virtual world of computer games. Every human desire can be satisfied here. People meet, connect with friends, have sex, even fall in love. And money makes this virtual world go round. Players now spend millions of dollars to support their virtual life. In the gamer revolution, people don't just play the games, they live in them. At the dawn of the 21st century, there's a new world to explore. Computer games are being colonized by millions of players worldwide. The most popular games are fantasy adventures played with other people on the internet. Here, the player gains access to an intoxicating and spectacular new life.
What games offer is a chance to be the star of the show, to be the central player, to be part of the environment of fantasy and the imagination. We now have the capacity to step at a moment's notice into a parallel world with very elaborate identities.
Online games are a powerful new form of expression for a generation reared on the computer. For them, life inside the game seems every bit as real as life on planet Earth. Just as real and a lot more exciting.
Suddenly there's no gravity. There's no physical laws at all. There's nothing. You're really in the Matrix and you can, all the laws of the physical universe are suspended and you can do anything you want.
Online games are a new version of human community. Every year, this community gathers in a small city in Norway, 100 miles from the Arctic Circle. It's the largest get-together of online gamers on the planet. It's called The Gathering. Thousands of kids have come here to play games around the clock.
Well, I pretty much brought my whole house, actually. My computer, my sound system, well, everything. My clothes, everything that's mattered to me, actually, I brought with me.
Glenn Matheson has traveled here to be with other members of his online gaming clan. The venue? An Olympic speed skating oval, wired by over 200 volunteers.
Everybody who helps make the gathering come true, none of them get paid. The closest thing in the US would probably be Amish barn racing, when everybody in the community comes together and help build the barn.
When you see all the rows, you're just like, it's just huge. People who ask me how it's like to be at a computer party with 5,500 other people are like, you can't explain it, you have to see it for yourself.
Gathering is an opportunity for gamers who have been playing together for a long time to finally meet each other.
I've never met none of these people except for one from the clan. I usually sit 2 to 3 hours in front of the computer and talking to these guys, so I get a special bond with them.
Phantom.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello, Rick.
How are you doing?
You don't look anything like your picture. Oh? No, you look, what should I say, more sexy or something like that.
Part of the whole thing about the gathering is getting people together and getting them to share knowledge. The gathering is sort of like a rock festival. The only thing different there is that it's computers instead of rock music.
Glenn's clan plays Battlefield 2, a warfare game in which each team member plays a specific role.
I'm a helicopter pilot. I'm a fighter pilot. I take up the dogfights on the other airplanes to keep them down.
I'm everything, what they need, like driving C4 cars and infantry and everything.
He does everything. Great. It's good.
He's a great jihad car driver. I love car.
On day 2, Glenn and his clan get into their battle garb to prepare for some hardcore gaming.
I think anybody who's a good team player online will be a good team player in real life. Because it's not your character that's a team player, it's you.
A lot of people are just really happy to be here, just to be here. Because there is this gathering feeling, the TG feeling, and it starts the first night when you turn off the lights.
For For a social event, there is surprisingly little face-to-face interaction. They share the same space, but they are still more connected to the virtual world. They rarely leave their monitors, surviving on a diet of caffeine and snack foods. For a group of over 5,000 kids, they are remarkably quiet.
The thing that makes kids different today is that they're accustomed to living online all the time. They don't think of the world as just the stuff that's physically around you. Like, they think of their world as this much larger universe that they inhabit. They're always in two places at once.
Online game playing is not just a youth phenomenon. The average gamer is now 30 years old. For adult players, online games offer an escape from everyday life without leaving home.
Games have gone from being just the province of these young kids to anyone who just wants to have sort of a little alternative life and have some sort of play in their life.
In many ways, Charity and Richard are an average American couple. They have 2 small children and a house in Silicon Valley. Richard is a software engineer, and Charity is a stay-at-home mom. But they also have another life, a virtual life inside an online game. They play City of Heroes, a comic book superhero game. 2 or 3 times a week, Richard and Charity go online for an intense round of play with other couples. Playing together is not only fun, it's an important part of their relationship.
I think it's fun to play computer games together. It may not sound very romantic, but it's kind of a cheap date for one thing. It's a shared hobby, really.
Yeah. I mean, you could be in the same room watching television, but you're not really interacting with each other.
In order to play an online game, you must create a character for yourself, an avatar. These avatars are an extension of the player, your alter ego in the virtual world.
So I called her Chilled Bubbly. Her costume is the color of champagne. That's just kind of a fun theme to go with. Her power, the ability to control ice and force fields, which are graphically represented as big bubbles around people.
City of Heroes takes place in a fictional metropolis called Paragon City. It's all about teamwork. Players form supergroups in order to defeat arch-villains wreaking havoc in the city.
When we're playing together, we do call each other by our characters' names. What actually happens is when I get introduced to somebody new to the group, I say, I'm Mrs. Green Zapper, or he's Mr. Chilled Bubbly. I go by our, again, the characters' names, and just a superhero.
Just a superhero.
Just trying to make a better world.
With 2 young children, Charity has a hard time keeping up with her husband.
If I want to do everything else that I want to do or need to do around the house, I just can't invest that kind of time in playing the game. It can really suck all your time. Is that cold? And I just have better things to do with my time. I have 2 little kids. I have a life, so I do enjoy playing this game, but I just don't want it to consume me so much.
I can either function on less sleep or don't get interrupted like that, and so I can do it and it doesn't bother me.
There's that. There's also the fact that you don't always wait till the kids are in bed to start playing. And sometimes you play in the morning before work. It's for good or for ill, it's just something that I think you can get away with more because the kids won't really let me. get absorbed into a game, you know, and have my attention
I can tune it
diverted that
out a
way.
little bit better.
For Charity to reach the level that her husband is at, she would need to spend another 250 hours in the game. Much of this time would be spent grinding, slaying monsters by the hundreds to earn what is known as experience points.
The dividing line between the ones that rise and the ones that fall are just who can log enough hours. Because you get experience with every beast you kill. So whoever kills the largest number of beasts, and that's just a repetitive task, is going to have more and more experience, and you'll ascend, upwards and upwards.
Hi guys. Prepare to be,
In a game where level 60 is the top level, she is languishing at level 30.
Whoa, I'm in trouble. Oh, this is not good. What it means in the game is that I'm just less effective a player. I don't bring as much to the team, I don't contribute as much, and I don't like feeling useless, or like the other guys on the team are humoring me to have me on there.
There actually is inequality inside these games that is even worse than what you see inside the US. Like, there's a very few number of enormously powerful, enormously wealthy people, and a great mass of people like me who are just sort of, you know, like almost like feudal peasants, basically.
Oh, they took down my defenses.
It's better to be powerful inside these games. It's better to be rich inside these games because there's experiences you can have that other people can't.
Guess I messed with the wrong group that time.
The solution for time-strapped gamers like Charity appears in the form of a new kind of business, power leveling. Patrick is an entrepreneur who came up with a novel idea. For a price, he will play the game for you and kill monsters on your behalf.
When I started, it was just kind of a side thing. But within 6 months of it, I was thinking maybe I should stop looking for a job and just make this my full-time job, because the numbers were beginning to be more serious. And after a year, I decided, you know what, this is a business.
Patrick set up a company where gamers can pay to have the power of their characters increased. First, the player has to decide how much stronger they want to be.
Initially, the prices actually for virtual services were very high. Even someone in the US doing this full-time could make a decent amount. If you knew how to play the games well, you could make a very nice salary.
Soon, Patrick had competition from power levelers based in the developing world.
Some individuals out of Eastern Europe, Asia, Mexico started offering services at prices that were much lower. And then it started to really not be worthwhile for me to be doing the actual work.
As costs went up and his business grew, Patrick decided to do what many entrepreneurs do: outsource his labor into cheaper foreign markets. He found Romania. With the new competition, Patrick has outsourced the labor of playing game characters to Romania, and he needs someone to run the operation. In the post-Soviet era, this country has had a hard time finding its footing. Wages are low, unemployment is rampant, good jobs are scarce.
It's very, very hard to find a place to work and a place where it's safer to work, because you can find a job to sell something on the market, and in the next day you find yourself unemployed.
Adrian's dream was to become a veterinarian, but he couldn't afford the education. One day, he stumbled across Patrick's ad online.
Actually, I never saw that he will answer, but one night he answered, and I was shaking, and I talked to him, and he agreed to give us a chance and provided us with everything that we needed. We started with 5 computers, and now we have 30 computers. 4 rooms of computers and a lot of people who are working for us.
Nu am auzit despre faptul că va trebui să jucăm în locul.
This idea that we are supposed to play for someone else is completely new to me. I was very surprised to learn that I would be doing their job. But I guess it's a good thing. It's nice to help people.
Mi s-a părut o treabă foarte bună și e foarte bine să ajuți.
Cum îl cheamă pe ăsta?
Cel Bubbly trebuie făcut level 50.
When they receive Charity's order, the team gets to work. The company has come up with its own system for supersizing anemic characters like Chilled Bubbly.
Salut! Bine, bine.
I organize them like the military with lieutenants, supervisors. We are working 24/7 in 3 shifts. Nobody leave from work without my permission, and when the shift change, the new people that came continues the others' work.
If we understood the reality that sin no longer had power over us, that when we were to sin, it would grieve us so deeply.
With the guys in Romania playing her character around the clock, it will take about 10 days to level Chilled Bubbly up to 40. In the time that Chilled Bubbly sits on the Romanian servers, Charity has no access to her character.
Lay it all down again.
You know, Cherry's gonna be level 40.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Good night.
I kept seeing your character on and I kept sending tells to you, but you weren't responding.
Yeah, see, it
Because
wasn't really me.
you.
It wasn't really me.
You must
saw you
thought
on
she must have
Friday.
been playing like a madman.
Well, I couldn't figure out why she was playing and you weren't. I was like, what's up with this, you know? Richard's in the background changing diapers or something, you know?
I mean, part of the pain is your butt going numb from so many hours getting the experience points to get your character up to that level. And then you go pay somebody somewhere else to do it. That's cheating. I mean, it's taking the shortcut. You haven't really earned your gamer stripes by power leveling to 50. I'm sorry.
So we should look down on you because you're a lowly level 30, 20.
No. I mean, I'm not one of these people that make a religion out of it, but I think if you're...
Put in my time in the game, believe me.
Right. She'll like play...
I really loved her. You'd play your character yourself and put the time in yourself instead of paying somebody in Romania to do it.
I got a life too, you know.
I'm okay with It's a very weird economy because it's an economy of time. And this is why you start to see these sweatshops appearing in underdeveloped countries, is because you have a lot of people that are cash poor but time rich. And time is the currency in online worlds.
I try to imagine that when someone is sending her character to be power leveled, during we are using her character, she is playing with her child, with a dog somewhere in a place with a lot of grass, instead of staying all the time at the computer and maybe to be angry and be nervous and all that.
Ziggity hot ziggity!
I'm gonna go check my email, sweetie.
I win!
Did you win? Oh, good. I'm gonna check my
10 days after Charity sent Chilled Bubbly off to Romania, she has come home.
Hey, Rich, look, it says your leveling is completed. You are now level 40 and 2 million influence bonus.
Let's see what you can do. I would like to see you be able to solo. That would be
Well,
great.
that would be great, wouldn't it?
Oh, now that's something new. I didn't know you could do that. Oh! Oh, I see. And they slow down. Oh! Whoa! You're not even doing anything.
I know, I'm
you're
just sitting here.
He's just...
In the virtual universe, there really aren't any borders. You know, it just so happens that Romania is a place where people can get this game and learn how to play it, and labor there is inexpensive, so. And I think it's a good deal for them. So, it seems like nice work if you can get it.
I think the idea itself is a genius idea. I like very much to work with a company from America. Actually, it's something that I can be proud of. I never been to California, maybe I will one day. How small is the world? I mean, this connects us. is like making friends all over the world, and you can be there just with one click of the mouse.
One team? I didn't even know there was such a thing.
A few months later, Patrick decided to open a second operation in the Philippines, a place where labor is even cheaper. It is no accident that computer games have an addictive quality. That is what their designers intended. Ubisoft is one of the biggest game companies with over 3,000 employees and annual revenues approaching $1 billion. Their game design studio in Montreal is one of the largest in the world. Ubisoft makes some of the most successful games in the business, famous for cinematic realism. They will spend up to $20 million and employ Hollywood-style production techniques, such as elaborate sound effects creation. Motion capture is a new way of making characters move. The real motions of the human body are recorded and then incorporated into the computer animations.
Each red spot that we see here is a camera. We have 24 in our studio, 24 cameras, which gives us a 20 by 30 capture stage. Once it's captured, it goes into the computer, and we can use this data to basically have really natural motion onto our 3D characters. Cut, good.
Game programmers, most of them are very savvy game players, and they know other savvy game players want. And there's no doubt that the name of the game from where they're coming from is to try and get people to spend as much time playing and interested in the game as possible.
The most compelling games are online fantasy adventures. These games are as complex as life itself. Just like real life, there is no off button. The game cannot be paused.
Well, ultimately, the game designer is responsible for making the game fun. You kind of have to understand basic psychology. A lot of games are about reward structures. You know, it's about how do I get rewarded? How do I make my avatar better? How do I get the highest score or what have you? So you have to be able to think about in your head before the game's in front of you, how am I going to be able to do that? So a lot of it's kind of gamer intuition and then coming up with, you know, using your analytical skills, come up with these rule systems to achieve how you want the player to feel and how you want the player to interact.
不要，不要什么意思？不要就是不要。
World of Warcraft is the first game to find a global audience. In China, its characters have become pop culture icons. It took a team of hundreds of developers 5 years to create this virtual universe. Every object, every beast, every leaf on every tree has been created by a vast army of computer artists. Hundreds of millions of lines of computer code create the illusion of a limitless world.
The designer of a multiplayer world is as close to being a god as any human being's ever gotten. They're enabling new forms of human expression. They're designing compelling worlds. They're putting us in rich environments. They're creating new kinds of experiences.
It would take months to explore this virtual world on foot. World of Warcraft is as big as a small country.
What the game designer has to do is continually feed them activities, feed them new stimulation, new things that they want to do.
Online games operate on a monthly subscription basis, and the goal is to make sure that players keep renewing.
Before World of Warcraft, you know, we kind of looked at games as trying to provide 30 to 50 hours of enjoyment, and then if people played beyond that, then that was kind of a bonus. But World of Warcraft's a game that we're trying to provide 500 hours to unlimited hours of enjoyment.
You'll have played all the main areas, and suddenly they'll announce we've created a new forest, you know? We've created a whole new class of demons to quest. Or if you log in this weekend, we're going to unleash a special bunch of battles. You can't blame them for it. They're running a business. They've got to keep people coming back.
With World of Warcraft, online games have become part of mainstream life.
All right, what's the best way?
That was just wrong. I'm sorry, bro.
Dave Eliasberg is the leader of a 60-player World of Warcraft guild in Northern California.
Hey Josh, make yourself useful. Plug this shit in, will you?
They meet online 3 times a week to do battle as a virtual army. Sometimes part of the guild will congregate at the home of a member.
Tonight I think we're just going to go and probably go kill Nefarian, which is one of the end dragons. We'll have 15 people here, but there'll be about 45 to 50 people online tonight.
Before leaving on a quest, the guild members bring their avatars to an appointed spot.
Everybody wave, everybody wave, everybody wave, just keep waving.
We usually play like 3 hours a night, 4 nights a week. You know, we cut $1 million deals during the day and slay dragons at night.
All right, fire it up. All right, fire it up.
Guilds are complex hierarchies. Each member has a role to play that they've chosen themselves.
We usually have 6 or 7 priests, 6 mages, 6 rogues, 6 warriors.
It's a world full of esoteric language and obscure rituals that only insiders can follow.
Certain classes of magic, if you will. So usually arcane, frost, or fire. Then you have warlocks, which can cast spells in shadow and fire. Create water, which is create food. The healers are priests, druids, and paladins. Or if you're playing all of the horde, you can have a shaman, which also is a healer.
You better turn up. Or dragon food.
Lyric fade down, please.
Finally, the beast is vanquished. The quest has taken over 3 hours. The rewards for slaying the dragon are valuable virtual objects that increase the avatar's power.
What we just went through is figuring out who gets it. And it's based on who contributes the most, who does the most, all that good stuff.
Many of us live in day-to-day worlds where it's hard to say at the end of the day what you accomplished. But to come home and be a warrior, you know, kill the orc and get some new doodad for your avatar is a very different kind of experience of success and accomplishment. We enjoy a sense of power in fantasy that's much greater than most of us experience in our everyday life.
The social issue and the cultural issue is, do these fantasies come with a price? Do these dream worlds make the rest of our lives seem sort of pale, black and white, and a little bit disappointing in comparison? And I think it opens up the possibility that people have a reality hangover.
This reality hangover is becoming a national problem in South Korea. There are 2 million people here thought to be at risk of forming an addiction to online games, an addiction that can be life-threatening. In April of 2006, a young gamer named Lee Sang-sop died in an emergency room after playing a computer game non-stop for 50 hours. In the past few years, he had been nurturing a obsession with an online role-playing game. In the months leading up to his death, Lee spent day after day grinding, methodically slaying hundreds and hundreds of monsters. After playing for 2 days straight, he died of dehydration and heart failure. In South Korea, over 75 gamers have died this way.
I've counseled kids who play the popular online games. They say they play for 2 to 3 days straight. If they don't, they can't move on to the next level. And if they can't move on to the next level, they are ignored or badly treated by their teammates.
The game is designed to push on very profound, almost Darwinian buttons. If you are not buffered by a family life, a social life, a sense of self, you can get caught there.
What these video games do is they put you at the center of the universe and they allow you to turn the world into an object to fulfill your desires. It's the embodiment of the consumerist mentality where Everything is about you. It's all you all the time, in the consumer world and in the video game world.
For most players, online games are a passionate hobby. For others, they are more real than life itself. The new wave are online games that have their own consumer economies. Players spend real money, virtual clothing, virtual furniture, and virtual real estate. Status matters. The goal is to provide your avatar with all the trappings of the good life. Where there are buyers, there are sellers. Some players are now making a lot of real money using software to create desirable objects to sell to other players. It's called a virtual economy, an economy based on things that don't exist.
There's less of a distinction for a lot of people between the real world and the game world. You're now seeing more people going, you know what, I can actually make some okay money doing this. Maybe I'm really good at crafting t-shirts that people like to buy. Or maybe I'm really good at providing some sort of a service.
There's one very simple ingredient that changes a massive multiplayer online game into a virtual universe, and it's real money. The moment that you apply that to a game, it becomes more than a game. It becomes a business. It becomes a livelihood. The stakes get higher.
John Jacobs is looking for his pot of gold in the world of online games. In the past 15 years, he has sought wealth and fame as an actor, a filmmaker, and a DJ.
All right, my fellow Entropians, this is Never Die, coming to you live from South Beach, Miami.
After a long series of disappointments, John is betting a computer game will be his path to riches and glory. It's called Project Entropia. Players are humans colonizing a faraway planet in the distant future. Every player has the opportunity to make money buying or selling virtual objects. When John created his avatar, he gave him the name Never Die.
The thing that you do most frequently when you play video games is die. So the ultimate video game character is Never Die. He never dies.
John's goal is to become rich by making Never Die a brand name.
It makes me feel guilty of saying, but you know, I go back to being a kid and just wanting to be a star. You know, it's like be a star.
Both John and his wife Tina were passionate players. Inspired by the game, John wrote a song under the name Never Die.
I remember one morning I walked in, I see her playing, and I'm like, wow, my girl's a gamer chick. I really love her so. She always wants to play. She never says no. I recorded it, and I sent it to the developers at MindArc. Her avatar looked fine. It was unbelievable. They're playing the song on the jukeboxes. People are dancing, and I'm watching people dance, standing around these jukeboxes dancing. People would like blow kisses. Wow, I love your track. They would talk about it on the forums. And I got a real dose of sort of, you know, virtual pop stardom.
What we've accepted more and more is adults need that sense of renewal that play brings with it. That taking on alternative identities, trying on costumes, putting on masks, free us to feel things that the rest of the world doesn't allow us to feel. That's the nature of fantasy in a game space. It allows us to feel things and be things that we can't in our everyday lives.
As Never Die, John finds himself with a hit record on his hands. He is able to trade on his celebrity to become one of the most successful players in Project Entropia.
I mean, I think he's well on his way to becoming the most famous virtual, you know, virtual star out there. So what did you say, Taliesin?
What's the reason because Mom died?
Taliesin,
Why did Mom die?
Taliesin,
In 2005, John's world was shattered when Tina died of a severe lung infection. The impact of her death was also felt in the game.
I had to tell these virtual people, that Tina had died, and it was very profound. Tina was beloved. People knew we were together. The gamer chick, she was the gamer chick. Now, I couldn't log into Project Entropia without telling people what had happened. I couldn't just carry on. All right, I'm gonna make you some baked beans.
With his wife gone, John has the sole financial responsibility of raising a young son. A few months after Tina's death, he dove into the virtual world of Project Entropia to try and make a living. In 2006, John remortgaged his house and made the biggest purchase of virtual property in history. He paid $100,000 for a computer-generated space resort created by the game designers. The work is complete, and for the first time, John is able to visit his space resort.
Here we go. That's great. Okay, I'm on the level 4. I guess this is level 4. Oh my God, it's beautiful. Wow. Wow. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. They built a planetarium in here they're setting off fireworks for me right now.
The resort hovers in space above the main area of the game and contains a shopping mall, nightclubs, and apartments, all of it for sale to other players. By parceling off pieces of the virtual property, John hopes to turn a profit in 1 year.
My revenue streams are, first of all, I have 1,000 apartments. They're gonna sell, and remarkably, anywhere from $100 to $1,000 each. That means I have $100,000 to $1 million worth of revenue from those apartments alone.
His customers are players willing to spend money on their avatars to create the image of success in the game.
Some of these online games are what William Gibson called a consensual hallucination. It was a world that everyone just sort of imagined existed and behaved as if it were real. That's exactly what these online worlds are like.
All my dreams are coming to fruition within this virtual universe and through this avatar Never Die. If I don't succeed, I will have to sell the house and get out of here and reconfigure my life because I won't have the income to support it.
The fact that this generation thinks that computers can sort of satisfy almost any need that they might have, that technology can answer almost any sort of basic human desire they have, transfers a lot of ambition into the screen and into the world of programming.
As the reach of games continues to grow, they are colonizing more and more aspects of our lives. Now they are approaching the final frontier, sex. The game industry has never shied away from images of mayhem and violence, but it has long struggled with another basic human impulse, sex. Capturing the small and subtle details of sexual activity is a huge challenge. But the rise of multiplayer games has created an opportunity for virtual eroticism. A few years ago, online game companies started to notice something strange. People were hooking up inside of games that were not designed for avatars to have sex.
You'll be playing a game and you'll see two characters lying side by side because that might be the only animation the game provides. And you don't see any chat in the open channel. And you know exactly what's going on. They're cybering. Either that or both characters were simultaneously very tired and laying down together.
Following the lead of some of the players, it wasn't long before a few entrepreneurs started to focus on creating an online game with a difference.
You're seeing these online worlds coming along who've decided, look, let's just make this the central part of the game. let's not make our main game hunting dragons, and in your spare time you sort of have hot chat with each other. Let's make the hot chat the central part of the game.
The emergence of sex into games is making for some strange bedfellows as porn companies tap into the games market.
Naughty America is a group of clean and friendly pornography sites. They go after niche markets like Naughty Teachers and My Best Naughty Friend, and they're clean, wholesome, porn, if there is such a thing. First thing you're going to do is create your online character, your persona, and you'll select from a variety of body types, face types, hair colors and hairstyles, outfits. Obviously, there's all kinds of different clothing options.
When you play a game with sexually explicit content, especially when interacting with other people, I think there's a huge opportunity to learn about yourself and also learn about other people, because in this sense, you get to experiment without consequences.
You can tape your sex experience and become an in-game Paris Hilton, basically. And then there's an in-game economy as well. You can sell your sex tapes. You can autograph your character's underwear and sell that to other players. You can sell yourself. You can sell sex acts if you want.
As with other online games, the longer you play, the more experience points you acquire.
You start out as a character missionary, and because you're a virgin. That's pretty much all you know. And so in order to learn different positions and different tricks attached to each position, you have to engage in sex acts with different players. And as you do, you learn more different tricks.
You really get to test out fantasies. And sometimes when you test out fantasies, they lose their power. Or sometimes you get to test out your fantasy and you think, oh my gosh, that really is what I like.
Let's say you're, from somewhere in the middle of the plains, like Oklahoma, and there's something that you're really turned on by. Maybe there's not going to be somebody down the street or down the county or, in the next 100 miles. But if you have a fetish, odds are you can find other people, not odds are, you can find other people with that same fetish online, and you can explore that fetish safely in communities that aren't going to make fun of you.
Sex is just the latest in a long line of human activities embraced by computer games.
Play with me.
Games have outstripped their origins as entertainment. They are a powerful new way of immersing ourselves in an alternate reality. Games are changing the way we communicate, the way we live, and even the way we think. This is just the beginning of the story.
I think when we look back at the end of the 21st century, we're going to say this was the century of games. Games now were just the beginning of what they're capable of doing. That is, we're just learning how to express ourselves through this medium. What happens next is going to be enormous.
Now we are learning that computer games are not child's play. They are a new language for a new century.